Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? This one's called Bloodbath. I'll be discussing the layoffs. I have some notes here that I'm going to be reading from, if you don't mind. It's just easier for me, and there's quite a bit of notes here, so just bear with me. All right, so here we go. Years ago, the term bloodbath seemed to be trending. Donald Trump used the term bloodbath during a campaign rally in Vandalia, Ohio on Saturday, March 16th, 2024. He made the comment while discussing the American auto industry and international trade, warning of the consequences for the country if he does not win the 2024 presidential election. Today, I want to talk about the bloodbath that we're swimming in as a result of the assassinations of corporate sector jobs and the psychological fallout it has, especially on the careerists. Those who've enjoyed a career for 20, 30 plus years at the same place of business now find themselves unemployed. Let's start with Oracle, since the trail of blood is still fresh in our news feeds. There is a lot more to the Oracle layoffs than meets the eye. Let's go back 1 year when in January of 2025, Trump said Stargate would create 100,000 American jobs almost immediately. Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, was standing right next to him, gun cocked, aimed directly at his own staff. Let me make sure that sounds good. Okay, thank you for that. On March 31st, 2026, Oracle, not just a Stargate partner, but the primary builder and physical operator of every Stargate data center, sent the first of 10,000 of its own workers a termination email at 6 a.m. The timing was done on purpose. No manager was looped in. System access was cut on delivery, and the email was signed Oracle Leadership. So here's the part worth paying attention to. The 100,000 jobs that Trump promised back in 2025 are construction worker jobs. They are in concrete, steel, cooling systems, temporary site labor across Texas, Texas, New Mexico, Wisconsin, and Michigan. They're real jobs, sure, but they end when the buildings are done. So the 30,000 that were fired on March 31st, 2026 are software engineers, cloud architects, SaaS operators, healthcare IT workers. The people who built the systems that those data centers are being built to run. So these are permanent careers that were gone in a single bloodbath email before sunrise. Oracle is not struggling, by the way. So we have to get away from this idea that companies are struggling and operating in the negative and need to cut staff in order to shore up their earning potential. Bullshit. Oracle boasted, oh, by the way, there will be swearing in this. Typically, there is swearing when there's an unnecessary loss of crucial jobs in our American infrastructure. There should be lots and lots of swearing. So there will be swearing in this. So Oracle boasted a $6.13 billion profit just last quarter. They were up 95% year over year. So historically, when companies experience a surplus, they hire more people to build a better, more profitable profit and product. They don't fire in sweeps. The bloodbath is about single portfolios in your C-suites, turning billionaires into trillionaires. They want to grab the salaries of your high earners, pay off their debts, and throw the rest in their own personal portfolio. That's all it is. Unfettered, diabolical greed that will eventually eat itself and cause an entire system collapse. So, what I mean by system collapse is your mom and pops are no longer shuttered as a result of an economy that has become inverted or asymmetrical. They've still been slaughtered, sure, but now your big box corporate retailers are also going down. The shrapnel from this open assassination is also affecting their bottom lines, like your Costco's and your Walmarts and your big corporate stores that have typically been unaffected or immune to unemployment averages. They too are grasping for life amidst the trail of blood and death that seems to be screaming across unemployment lines. Oracle is also cutting workers because it owes $248 billion in data center lease commitments that do not appear on its balance sheet. So the question is, why do the workers who are creating the functionality within these data centers, why are the workers' salaries having to pay for that debt? It's also cutting workers because it committed to $50 billion in AI infrastructure this fiscal year alone. So this spending will be this for this fiscal year alone. And it's also cutting workers because the $300 billion open AI contract it signed. Remember, I'm going to talk about OpenAI too in a minute. That's the CEO is Sam Altman. So the one that made Ellison briefly the richest person on earth, it does not generate revenue until 2027. Bloomberg reported 3 weeks ago, citing internal Oracle sources, that the cuts targeted roles the company expects AI to make redundant. And when the termination email unleashed its bullets on 30,000 employees on March 31st, 2026, the reason they gave for killing the good workers was because of, quote, broader organizational change. Oracle told 30,000 employees it's because of organizational change that your career is imploding. Oracle told Bloomberg it's because of AI. Oracle told the investor, hey, the plan is working, investors. The kill switch means value added portfolios. But Oracle told America, 100,000 jobs, America. Yay. All four are technically true, but what's the key takeaway? Despite all this, Oracle's stock jumped 5% just seconds after they sent that assassination email on March 31st, 2026. Side note, here's a personal story that you might find interesting. This has been going on since 2021. A senior architect figured out why his manager has been so interested in his documentation practices lately. 6 months of mandatory screen recordings during complex problem-solving sessions, and every prompt that he writes to Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT gets logged to a shared Confluence space for knowledge sharing. His manager keeps scheduling these weird walkthrough meetings where he has to explain his entire debugging process step by step while someone from process improvement takes furious notes. 2 weeks ago, he got curious and he checked the team Slack and he found a private channel called hashtag knowledge extraction phase 2. Screenshots of his entire workflow were in this private channel, and his custom Claude prompts, his debugging methodologies, and his architectural decision trees were all listed there, as well as his vendor evaluation frameworks. I would think that that would be an issue with proprietary. Anyway, especially since what I'm about ready to say. Everything that he had built for over 8 years of solving impossible problems were uh, in this file. So who are the members in this channel where he found all his work was being held? His manager, the engineering director, and 2 outside consultant architects in Bangalore who he's never heard of. So this is where you get into proprietary issues. Why do you have outside consultants who aren't even part of the organization access to your clients' information? So that right there is really sus. So yesterday, those two contractors got added to the main engineering channel. And today, his manager scheduled a role evolution conversation for Monday morning. The contractors are already using his prompts in production. His entire career just got exported to a Google Doc and shipped overseas for 1/5 of his salary. So they didn't just steal his job, they stole his fucking brain and sold it to India. This is the very definition of wage slavery. This actually happened to my husband while he was working at Optum. He had one session with a junior architect from India who didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And so once JP realized what was really going on, the jig was up. He told the kid to figure it out himself and stop talking to him. Remember where I told you how Oracle just fired 30,000 of their staff, and one of the reasons was because Ellison needs that revenue to pay back the loans that he took out? Let's take a look at Salesforce. Salesforce just borrowed $25 million to buy back their own stock. Well, I believe they are planning the largest tech massacre in history. It's my opinion, and again, this is just an opinion, that Mark Benioff is about to eliminate Salesforce staffers to pay for his $50 billion stock buyback scheme. And if you thought 30,000 cuts from Oracle was bad, just wait. Let me say that again. Salesforce took on the debt to inflate their share price, and Oracle did the same thing. So it would be naive of us all to think that Salesforce is somehow immune from the next round of cuts. Ellison was Benioff's mentor, by the way, so come on, wake up. Especially since their suite of SaaS products, which is software as a service, are becoming irrelevant. They're becoming irrelevant because all the jobs that use the products are going away, which means sales for the SaaS products are actually going down. Yet Salesforce is already sitting on allegedly a $34.9 billion in annual revenue. So the math just isn't mathing. Someone's cooking the books. Apparently, though, they're up 11% year after year, just like with Oracle. Consistent profit year after year. What does that tell you? It should be a red flag, is what I'm trying to say. So, in fact, this last quarter was the most profitable quarter in the company's history. Benioff made $29.9 million last year for his private portfolio. Stock buyback will bump his personal wealth by another $180 million. Workforce optimization is often the largest language used to sweep up divisions: sales, engineering, support, marketing, design. Nobody is safe. There's a good chance middle management got the kill list right about the same time Oracle assassinated their own. In fact, Salesforce termination emails could potentially be queued for Monday morning, the day after Easter. Badge access could be revoked by midnight Sunday. This is all speculation, so don't quote me on this. The reason I say speculation is because the difference between Benioff and Ellison is that Benioff cares about how this will make him look politically. This doesn't make him a nice person concerned about the well-being of his staff. It simply means he hates the bad press. You notice there's very little negative said about him in mainstream. But still, the fucking audacity needs to be called out for what it is. Spiraling your company into debt to fatten up your private portfolio, and then paying off the debt by eliminating salaries for workers that built your company. It's not just unethical, but it's stupid. It doesn't seem like good business practice. Essentially, you're turning borrowing money into a weapon of mass destruction, and you end up accidentally creating actual domestic terrorists. Speaking of ChatGPT, the CEO of the most valuable private company in history is being sued by his own sister for sexual abuse. A judge just allowed the case to move forward. Annie Altman filed an amended lawsuit on, no joke, April 1st, 2026, in St. Louis, in a St. Louis federal court, accusing her brother, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company that owns ChatGPT, of sexually abusing and raping her between 1997 and 2006. She says the abuse started when she was 3 years old and he was 12. A judge dismissed the original claims because the statute of limitations expired in 2008. But he allowed her to refile under Missouri's childhood sexual abuse law. So she did. The case is now active. Now, Sam Altman denied everything, of course, called it extortion, filed a defamation countersuit against his own sister based on social media posts she made between 2021 and 2024. And now his family sides with him and says she has mental health challenges. Isn't that convenient? Annie posted videos saying that she was touched by older siblings and that an almost tech billionaire molested her. The judge said those statements make it reasonable to infer that she meant Sam Altman. This is the same man, and this is the part that you should really pay attention to. I try not to get into these other, Epstein-like stories, but this is the part you should pay attention to, or at least this is the part that I pay attention to. Okay, so this is the same man whose own board of directors fired him in 2023. Former board member Helen Toner said 2 senior executives came forward with screenshots and documentation. They used the words psychological abuse. They said he was lying and manipulating people. Sounds like he's a fucking narcissist and a fucking psychopath. Said that they had, what's up? Said that they had no belief he could change. The board fired him secretly because they knew he'd try to undermine them. He came back 5 days later. Employees were told either Sam comes back or the company dies. We'll talk about extortion. That sounds like extortion, right? I think it's important to delve into the personalities of the kind of men we're dealing with here. The Musks, the Bezoses, the Ellisons, and the Benioffs. And Altman is a very good standard by which to measure these assassins. Because that's what they are. They're assassins. The former OpenAI board of directors fired Sam Altman on November 17th, 2023, primarily because they concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications. What? A narcissist isn't candid? Color me shocked. Which they argued hindered their ability to exercise their responsibilities. Former board member Helen Toner later explained that the decision was the result of a long-term breakdown in trust rather than a single event, citing several key factors. Withholding information and lying. Toner alleged that Altman withheld information about company operations, such as not informing the board in advance about the launch of ChatGPT. Psychological abuse and a toxic culture. Shocking, right? Board members received complaints from multiple executives regarding a toxic atmosphere created by Altman, which they described as psychological abuse. And undermining the board, Toner further stated that Altman attempted to manipulate the board, including trying to remove her by fabricating a consensus that other board members wanted her off. Conflicts of interest. Concerns were raised that Altman did not properly disclose his personal financial interest in the OpenAI startup fund. Safety and commercialization speed. Some board members, particularly Ilya Sutskever, felt that Altman was prioritizing rapid commercialization over safety, leading to disagreements about the company's direction. This wasn't his first time. The management team at his first startup, Looped, went to the board twice asking to fire him for deceptive and chaotic behavior. He was reportedly pushed out of Y Combinator, too. Every safety leader who clashed with him left. Musk, Subscriber, Emoti. When Jan Leakey resigned, he said safety culture has taken a backseat to shiny products. OpenAI was forcing departing employees to sign agreements saying if they ever criticize the company, they lose all their equity, millions of dollars. When it leaked that Altman claimed that he didn't know anything about it, people were a little curious by that. So here I am channeling my best Heather's Generation X reference. See the movie if you don't get it. As if you're trying to tell me the CEO didn't know what was in his own exit contracts, give me a break. He asked Scarlett Johansson to voice ChatGPT, and she said no twice. They made a voice that sounded like her anyway. And Altman tweeted her on launch day. The actress had to hire lawyers to get them to stop. Forbes says he's worth $3.3 billion. The Musk trial starts on April 27th of this year, so just in a few weeks. Oh, you haven't heard? As of April of 2026, the fraud lawsuit filed by Elon Musk against OpenAI and CEO Sam Altman is heading to a jury trial in Oakland, California, with jury selection scheduled for April 27th, 2026, and the trial is expected to last through May. The case centers on accusations that OpenAI abandoned its nonprofit mission. You guys didn't know that about OpenAI, did you? That it was originally nonprofit? Abandoned its nonprofit mission to become a for-profit entity, with Musk seeking to reverse this transformation and pursuing significant damages. On top of this dumpster fire, Altman's sister's case is now active. Look, his own board fired him for lying. His own executives called it psychological abuse, and his own sister is exposing dark family secrets. And Musk is going for broke. And this is the guy the world is trusting with AI. Do you really want to tell me that the 4.3% unemployment rate is a result of not being able to find good, strong workers with ethics? We have a CEO problem, not a worker problem. Why do we even need CEOs anyway? Shouldn't those with ethics, intelligence, and an understanding of the entire system they built just own their own means of production? Okay, I'm getting off track here. You guys aren't ready for anarchism yet. Reminder: don't disregard a person just because they didn't have a successful career. So many sharp, knowledgeable people are nowhere close to their potential in the corporate sector, not because of lack of ability, but because life wasn't kind to them like it was for you. Besides, it shouldn't take 100 job applications just to get an interview in the allegedly wealthiest nation in the world. This isn't something wrong with the applicant. I just told you who is to blame. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff and talk about the psychological impact this may have on the unemployed population. We are at a crucial point, not just a tipping point. We have already crossed the threshold, and we're at a higher unemployment rate than we were in 2008. When the great financial crisis hit us and our global homeless population skyrocketed and pensions were absorbed to bail out billionaires. But even then, there seemed to be a sense of understanding around the toppled economy. It was an open secret. Waste, fraud, and abuse had infiltrated our lending agencies, selling subprime mortgages. Even though there was no real justice served, at least we knew the truth about why the job market had closed and why opportunities had come to a halt. This time, though, there doesn't seem to be any real logical explanation. Companies are operating at obscene profit, and yet they're firing people while also not hiring people. This is creating a cognitive disconnect in the recently unemployed. The contractors or those that have been jumping from gig to gig over the last 10 years may have found themselves swept up in this latest sweep and have been knocked down enough times that they can take it on the chin and wait for the next upswing through gritted teeth, learned resilience, and juggling frustrated finances. I'm not too worried about them. But there's a new type of unemployed person who is caught up in this latest sweep that we've actually never seen before, not openly anyway. It's the careerist who's been at the same job for decades. Typically, these individuals have placed themselves in positions that aren't too exposed or dynamic, or are in regions where there is more of a need than there is talent, so they've strategically made themselves invaluable. Some of these careerists, like Nina here, and let me go ahead and share this. See if I can get this to come up. Let's see, share the screen. I don't know, allow. Can you see that? There she is, right? So Nina. Well, after 34, 33 of them great years at Oracle, I joined the 30,000 or so laid off today. Quite a shock. Many of the absolute best colleagues were laid off as well, it seems. Layoffs follow an algorithm of high-level individual contributions and mid-level managers, especially those with outstanding stock options. I'm not sure what to do next, if anything. I'm open to ideas, smiley face, winky wink. Anyway, let me close that. So people like Nina may not have the psychological understanding of what they're even experiencing. And the fallout of their recent layoff is going to be something that we will all have to bear witness to, and in some cases, help along, or better yet, get the fuck out of their way when they have their mental breakdown. I call them the recently unemployed careerists. These are people who have had straight up consistent paychecks for 20, 25, 30 plus years of their life. I can't even imagine. This alone makes most of them, not all of them, but most of them, incapable of understanding what it means when that direct deposit has suddenly strategically disappeared. With a steady income, you build your life and your experiences and your choices based on what you can count on. And if you've been counting on something for more than a couple of decades with no interruption and it suddenly goes away, to have to change your habits is almost an impossible task. Again, I'm not saying every single person is going to experience this, but the majority probably will. And this is the mental break that I think is coming collectively in sort of the shadow consciousness of our culture, of our world. Unlike the contractors or those that have gone from one corporate gig to the next with weeks or months in between gigs, the recently unemployed careerist hasn't had to acclimate to various personalities, is not resilient intellectually or emotionally. They haven't had to acclimate to regions, accents, or even archetypes or stereotypes. They've been coddled emotionally, most likely nestled nicely in their work environments and their work relationships. It's almost as if they have never really been the author of their own life. The careerist has been run by unexamined patterns, social programming, unconscious fears they've never had to face, and beliefs they never had to choose while remaining convinced that they're making free decisions. The worst thing they may have ever experienced at their job is that they were told they may have had to wear a mask. But even then, they were immediately given a pass to just work from home until the virus passed. That coddling and abandonment of the self is not just a sad outcome. That is a profound form of delusion, and it deserves to be called exactly what it is. The recently unemployed careerist is so self abandoned, there is probably no way they can function in a new environment. Because after acclimating 20 to 30 years to the same personalities when they've never been challenged or done any challenging themselves, never experienced narcissism or psychopathy or the treachery that tends to rise in the corporate sector, it's doubtful they'll survive in the real world. It's naive to think that they would. Furthermore, the now unemployed careerist, especially if they're a man, will most likely carry around something that they have never experienced in their long career: shame. They've never been demoted, never received a reprimand, never experienced being set up to fail. Suddenly they're cast out, and the shame, which most likely goes undiagnosed or unrecognized even in themselves, is something that may come out in ways that affect their family, their friends, or society at large. Furthermore, the sense of abandonment that the now unemployed careerist will face is also something they've never truly felt in their world. Humans are wired to be social and to be part of a tribe or a nest. When that tribe or nest or uncomfortable environment kicks them out into the wild, their flight or fight kicks in and they flail, unable to master their own emotional pitfalls as a result of this profound abandonment and rejection. Something primal kicks in. I fully expect to bear witness to a mental break from a large portion of the unemployed population. We've seen unemployment hikes before in this country, but we've never seen an active process to unleash the most unstable into the general population. They will experience betrayal and injustice for the first time in their sheltered lives, especially when they find out the company they dedicated decades to is operating at an obscene profit and there was no reason to fire these careerists at all. I personally know of someone who, after a 30-year career at the same job, was unceremoniously fired for no reason in the last quarter of 2025. At first, I felt bad for him. But once I saw who he really was, he's a giant, emotionally ill equipped, socially stunted man child. I didn't feel so bad. I felt he was actually a good representation of what we will all be facing very soon in our families, our social circles, and our casual acquaintances in the general population. And if you're like me, you want no part of it. The best thing to do is stay out of their way so that when they explode their mental break, you won't get hit with the shrapnel. Trump was right. It's a bloodbath. And it seems the only industry that might survive this utter desecration of our workforce is the mental health industry. Analysts, behavioral experts, and even psychologists will be there to mop up the bloody mess of unstable and irrational, especially the unemployed careerists, that people like Benioff and Ellison and Altman have just dumped on the rest of us. So I hope you enjoyed that. I felt like something needed to be said regarding the Oracle layoffs, and more than just talking about, the surface level issues, but maybe going a little bit deeper into how this is going to affect people, emotionally and psychologically, especially those people who've never had anything bad ever happen to them. The worst thing that they maybe ever had was, like I said, maybe they had to wear a mask and then their office manager was like, "Oh no, you don't have to come in. You don't have to, if you don't want to wear a mask, you can just work from home." I mean, that's fine. I don't like wearing a mask either. That's totally fine. But I guess I'm saying if that's the worst thing that ever happened to you at your job, then it's going to be rough after 20, 25, 30 years. The the chopping block comes and you don't know who you are at all. So I do know, and on the other side of it, I need to be fair. I do know at least two people that have had, they're good friends of mine. They both have had the luxury of having a, decades long career at one company, which is unheard of. And they recognize their privilege. They recognize their privilege, and they also are very aware of what's going on in the world. And so they have started to do things outside of their career, like sort of side hustle type things, even though they don't really need to. I'm thinking of one in particular. She's, doing sort of a side hustle writing and stuff like that. So, and then the other one became a citizen of another country. So, I mean, there's people that are doing things in the face of this diabolical bloodbath that we're in the middle of. Um, I think that more are coming, obviously. I personally think that Salesforce is next. There were 1,000 jobs that were uh, lost in February. In February of 2026, 1,000 people were let go. But one other thing about the Benioff story, where he took out a huge loan in order to bump up his personal portfolio. One thing that I forgot to mention is that when companies do that, or when CEOs do that, oftentimes they take that loan money and they hand it over as severance packages to the C-suites. So I mean, we should really be paying attention to history here. This is not this We've seen this before. We've seen this movie before. We know what's up. It's the equivalent of dumping your stock, right? Come on. So we need to be aware that our friends and family members are dealing with some pretty horrific situations right now. There's, you know, job loss all over the place. A friend of mine in particular mentioned, something that I want to talk about, this sort of this shame that's attached to the careerist who's recently found himself unemployed. Um, so he said his brother was given the termination letter, and was forced to leave his job. So he was let go, and it was probably for the excuse for budget constraints, but that's probably not really why. But the uh the attitude of the brother and the brother's immediate family, like his wife, was such an interesting psychological analysis. They refused to admit the truth. They said that they chose to take early retirement, that they chose to leave their career. The brother said this, or the wife said it on the brother's behalf. Well, first of all, what kind of a man is letting his wife speak for him on social media about his own job and his own career? That's bullshit. And then the second thing is, why do you have to lie? There is no shame at all in telling the truth, you know? So we have a real problem here where people are taking it personally, and they're not, and it's because they never paid attention to what was going on in the real world. They never opened up LinkedIn or even TikTok, for Christ's sake, or, any of these social media accounts where you just see post after post and stream after stream, thousands of people going, I was laid off today. I was laid off today. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, so these 30-year careerists that, were just living in this delusional bubble, they had no idea, and so they took it personally. Especially my friend's um, brother, who I believe is older than him. He's got like a couple of grandkids, I guess, and he was just feeling shame. And you shouldn't feel shame over something that you have no control over, right? Just because, it's like feeling shame when, a thief walks into your house and steals all your valuables. Why do you feel shame about that? Like, you know. So anyway, we are going to have to pick up the pieces for these people that don't know how to differentiate and individuate and learn how to adapt to the crisis, right? So I applaud the people that have, side hustles, for sure. Um, and I'm concerned about the people, like the one person I mentioned who I don't know him personally, but I'm close to somebody who does know him personally. And this guy's he's a loose cannon. Like, he is a giant man baby throwing temper tantrums. I mean, and those are the kind of people that I'm worried about. And who knows, maybe it's just because, it's a Southern thing. I don't know. But I'm like, I'm from San Francisco. I'm not used to seeing men throw temper tantrums. So that was weird. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast. I hope you got something out of it. And I'm sure that I will be sharing more information soon about what's going on in the world. But I thank you for tuning in and supporting us and me. It means a lot. So I will see you soon. Bye.
You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Book of Hours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.